Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanic. And if you enjoy this fanic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanic like this. And now let's start the fanic.
It's been 3 days since the Academy Genin exams for Kumo. For the last 3 days, those that have passed the test have been doing whatever they wanted to do. Some went ahead and relaxed for a bit, others continued to train hard, and the last had prepared on what they would need. For Naruto, it had been 3 days of nothing but personal thought and issues. The last 3 days were nothing more than thinking and rethinking about what the Raikage had said to him. The day he took his Genin exams was also the day that the Raikage told him that his parents were the Yondaime Hokage of Konoha, Minato Namikaze, and the former Jinchuriki of Kyubi, Kushina Uzumaki. He had so many thoughts. First, he thought about his father, the one that saved Konoha, the one that sealed a Kyubi inside him, and the one that even now he considered his hero was his father. There were so many thought and feels going through him that he felt completely lost. He questioned on why the fourth used his own son to seal the Kyubi in him. He then questioned on why the third, who acted like his grandfather sometimes, didn't tell him that he was the son of the greatest Hokage Konoha has ever had. Or why the third lied to him in his face the few times he asked on who his parents are. He was completely confused about the whole situation. He then thought about his mother. For the first time, he now knew why he didn't have a mother, because he knew from Yugito and Killer Bee that told him that once a Biju is pulled out from the Jinchuriki would die. He wondered so many times on what his mother was like, that he cried himself to sleep on nights he could sleep, thinking that she abandoned him because of what his father did or because she died with him. He was happy to know that she died since now he knew he was never abandoned and was glad to finally know what her name was. Even though he was somewhat happy to know that his parents did abandon him, other questions popped into his head. Did they love him? Was he a mistake? Why did they die? For a while, that along with other things just kept eating at him. He even trained himself to exhaustion to try to think clearly about the situation. Thankfully, Yugito came to help him. The Raikage explained to her about the bet he made with Naruto about his parents' identity. Yugito was surprised to know about the bet they made years ago. Yugito wanted to know on whose Naruto's parents are since she was just as curious, but said to talk to Naruto about it since he is the only one to have that right to say who are his parents. Yugito talked to Naruto for a bit, which helped him out for a bit since Yugito helped answer some of Naruto's more easier questions, but questions about feelings or about the past were the ones that were left unanswered. In the end, Naruto was able to put some of his issues away, but he still had other questions, mostly about his heritage since he knew he was from the Uzumaki clan and now from the Namikaze clan, but for now, he was content on knowing his family. Academy. The students that passed Kumo's Genin exam were waiting in their old classroom for the last time, to see who will be teamed up. Naruto was sitting in the left row, center table, left seat where the windows were located. He looked outside through the window, just watching the day go by. He is currently thinking on who would be on his team since he only wanted 2 people to join him, Samui and Omoi. After waiting for a while, everyone was now calmly sitting down on the seats they picked when the sensei came into the room. Omoi took his seat next to Naruto, which Naruto silently was thankful because Omoi helped keep his fangirl away from him. He saw Samui sitting in the front center row of the class. Alright class, this would probably be the last time we see each other in class. From this point, what you do will not only impact you but also in Kumo, so work hard and stay safe. Now, for the team placements, where we will tell you where you'll then meet your sensei. The shinobi then started to go down the list, giving each potential genin the team they were assigned. Many kunoichi wanted to be on Naruto's team, while the male wanted to be in a team with Samui. It went on until it reached Team 8. Next, Team 8 will consist of Sora, Ryo, and S. Your sensei will be Saito. Now for Team 9. Naruto Uzumaki. This caught Naruto attention, as well as almost every available kunoichi that hasn't yet been placed on a team, Samui, Omio, and Karui, your sensei will be Killer Bee. Naruto was surprised to know that Killer Bee will be his sensei, but figured that the Raikage would want someone who can teach Naruto on how to control his Biju, which he thought it would be Yugito, while also making sure his other 3 teammates will be well trained. He was also surprised to see Karui would be his 4th teammate, since she was one of the few girls that don't want to date him. Samui was surprised as well, which she barely showed it on her face, knowing that the Raikage's brother will be teaching him, while pleased to know that Naruto would be on her team as well as Omio. She, of course, was upset to know that Karui would be on her team since she knew that Karui isn't up to snip yet, but she has proven that she was an average Kenjutsu fighter. The shinobi instructors continue on with the last team, where they then told each team on where to meet their sensei. After that, they were all dismissed. With Team 9, Naruto and Samui were walking alongside each other, while Omoi and Karui walked behind them. As they walked, Karui tried to figure out on what to say since it was eerily quiet among them. Before she can say anything, Samui spoke up. So Naruto-san, do you mind explaining to me on why you've been so quiet today? You usually more active than you really are. So what seems to be the problem? Samui asked with curiosity. Omoi was also just as curious since he knows Naruto pretty well to know that something must be bugging him. Karui was the only one that didn't understand on what they meant. Karui was one of the few girls that actually didn't act like a fangirl, but still had some feelings for him, but was still unaware on how Naruto acted since she never actually became friends with him. Naruto thought about Samui's question for a minute since this was really hard matter to speak about, one that he still has yet to settle. He thought about it until he decided to tell them cause Samui might give him her 2 cents about the matter. What if you find out that you're the legacy of not one but 2 of the greatest shinobi in the world, which one you admired for so long, while the other is from a legendary clan? As well as knowing that your father was the one that cursed you, explained Naruto. That got all 3 of his teammates into a surprised and curious mode. For Karui, she couldn't believe that Naruto was the legacy of 2 powerful shinobi, which was one of many things that Naruto's fan club wanted to know. Samui and Omoi were just as interested since they knew a lot about Naruto, and for him to say something like that was kinda weird. Omoi decided to break the silence saying, "Dude, what do you mean?" Asked. I spoke to the Raikage a couple of days ago since I won the bet that we made a couple of years ago. Even though the 3rd Hokage kept a secret from me, even before I was brought to Kumo, it didn't mean that there were others that didn't know who knew him and can't put 2 and 2 together with me, said Naruto. What are you talking about, Naruto-san? Questioned Samui. Raikage-sama told about my mother and father, answered Naruto. This surprised even Samui since she knew that Naruto doesn't know who his parents were from the times they talked, eat and trained together. She always wondered who they were, since she in the same boat as him and didn't know her own parents but learned something about them from her older brother. She especially knew that Naruto wanted to know who they were. But now, she couldn't help but wonder on whose legacy that Naruto was carrying. Omio and Karui were just as stunned about the situation. Omoi couldn't believe that the Raikage could tell Naruto or know such a secret, while Karui wondered on who his parents were since the way he said, his parents must be powerful people. Before they can even press on about the subject, Naruto just said to drop it since he still has issues about it for now. Samui and the others agreed with Naruto's request and decided to just meet up with their new sensei. Later, it's been about a few minutes when Naruto and the others reached the meeting place, where they waited for Killer Bee. The meeting was located at the same place where Naruto first went to when he learned that he was the Jinchuriki of Kyuubi, at a park near the lake. They only waited for a bit before Killer Bee showed up, and of course he showed up in his own style. Hey boys and girls, it's me, you see, your new sensei, the great Killer Bee, ah yeah. Yelled out Killer Bee. Everyone saw Killer Bee come out of the lake in his Biju mode, which surprised everyone, even Naruto since this the first time that he has seen Killer Bee go Biju. When everyone saw the Hachibi form, they were scared, but then surprised when it shrunk down into Killer Bee himself. He then walked up to them to greet them more properly, which was bumping fists. Naruto was the first to get out of the shock feeling that Killer Bee gave them. He gave him a fist bump. Samui was the second to come out of the shock feeling, then Omoi and Karui. Samui, Omoi and Karui saw Naruto bump fists together, which they both greeted each other like usual. Then B turned to his three other new student and held out a fist. They were curious about it. Wook Naruto explained to them. Guys, he wants you to bump fists with him. This is B sensei's way of greeting new people. The others nodded, which each one gave him a fist bump. After that, B did his weird rap on everyone saying to introduce themselves so they can know each other better. Naruto decided to go up first. Hi, my name is Uzumaki Naruto. I like ramen, gardening, fuinjutsu, and my friends. My dislikes are people who mistreat others for something they don't understand. My hobbies are training hard, studying in new fuinjutsu, gardening. My dream is for one day to start a family, being a master fuinjutsu and become the next Raikage. After Naruto introduced himself, the others went up. My name is Samui. My likes are a secret. My dislikes are people who aren't cool. My hobbies are training, improving my kenjutsu, reading cool books. My dreams are none of your business. Samui plainly said. Next, Omoi and Karui told their team about what they like, dislike, hobbies and dreams. After the genin tell a little bit about themselves, Killer Bee wrapped away his own introduction. Now with your intro is done, it's time for the rhyme master, Killer Bee, to sing up his intro. Rapped B, as he did it in his own hip-hop dance way. My name is Killer Bee, you see. I'm the eight-tail beast you see. I like my bro as well as my swords. I don't diss anyone or anything. I like to write and sing my rhymes. And my dream is my own tale to tell. Which everyone had a sweat drop on their heads. After introducing each other, Killer Bee stated there was one more test for them to take before they can become genin. Karui complained about it, while Omoi was worried on what kind of impossible test they might have to take. Naruto and Samui weren't worried since they thought they'll be able to handle it. Karui the shouted out, what kind of test are we taking then for us to become shinobi? Killer Bee just smirked, saying, that's my tale to tell. Come at the morn, in my turf to find out the task at hand. With that, Killer Bee told them where to meet in the morning and left his possible genin team to be ready for tomorrow. Weeks later. It has been over a month since Naruto and his team became genin. Naruto was grateful to know that he, Samui and Omoi worked well together from Killer Bee's test. Karui was another problem, but after some lecture during the test, they were all able to pass. Flashback. Currently, Naruto was hiding inside some bushes as he was trying to figure out on how to take Killer Bee's sunglasses. Earlier Killer Bee told them that for them to become Kumo's genin, they needed to pass as to steal his sunglasses, but of course this can only be applied for only one person since only one person can pass this test. With that, Killer Bee began the test, which all four of them separated. After thinking it over, Naruto figured that the only way he can pass this test was to first get the others to help out and they can then figure on how to solve the Satutayan. He quickly left his hiding spot to find Samui, Omoi and Karui to get them on helping each other on stealing Killer Bee glasses. After a bit of searching, Naruto found Samui and Omoi, who agreed to Naruto's plan and agreed to put their personal matters on becoming shinobi on hold after they retrieved Killer Bee's sunglasses. But before they went to get Karui, all of them spotted Karui challenging Killer Bee, which all of three of them thought on how much of an idiot she is. After a few minutes of fighting, Karui was brought down. At that moment, Naruto and the rest of the team went ahead with their own plan. They each positioned themselves on their designated spots in order to prepare their chance. Once Karui was down, they made their move. Naruto had his bow ready at a nice distance, where he can move quickly and help his friends. Naruto shot his bow at Killer Bee's face, which he caught the arrow in his hands, but was surprised on what happened next. The arrow had a special smokescreen paper bomb. As the paper bomb exploded, all three moved in on Killer Bee. Samui and Omoi had their katanas in their hands. As the smoke screen was still on the field, Killer Bee could sense the attacks that were coming, which he dodged several slash and strike from Samui and Omoi. Killer Bee had the advantage, until he saw several arrows coming at him, who he dodges all of them, which the last one he bent down to avoid. With Killer Bee bent down, Omoi went in for the glasses, only to be surprised by Killer Bee when he jumped up into the air. Of course, Samui jumped into the air, hoping that Omoi did his part to get Killer Bee into the air to avoid Omoi assault. The plan worked as she saw Killer Bee coming out of the smoke cloud, which he saw Samui waiting to strike at him. Samui was about to use her sword for a slash with her left hand, while she was ready to use her right to get Killer Bee's sunglasses. But unfortunately, Killer Bee predicted this, which is why he used his substitution jutsu with Karui when Samui tried to capture him. As Killer Bee exited the smokescreen, he was surprised by the sudden arrows that were coming at him. Killer Bee dodged it, only to be surprised by the person who shot at him from behind. After shooting his arrows, at a very close range away from the smokescreen, he immediately in full speed got behind Killer Bee to strike at him. Naruto used his specially made bow to attack Killer Bee. Normally, those who are long-range specialists, who use weapons like bow for long range, would not be very strong in close-range combat, but Naruto made sure he trained himself to fight in any range, close mid-long range attacks. As Naruto used his bow to help confused Killer Bee, Samui quickly came behind Killer Bee in order to trap him, but Killer Bee jumped over her. Naruto didn't stop his assault, as he used the moment that Killer Bee made to help out Samui. He quickly used his bow to balance out Samu, by putting her inside his bow and turned her around as well as used the string as a type of spring. He then jumped up and pulled his bow away from Samui to let her keep running towards Bee. Samui was surprised on what Naruto did, but immediately knew what he was up to, which she was grateful since Bee has yet to land from his jump. Samui had a perfect push as Naruto used the moment to jump behind Samui, while she also ducked a bit to let the bow go over her easier, giving her a perfect start run at Bee. As Samui went after Killer Bee, Naruto had prepared another arrow to shoot at Bee. Once Bee landed, he turned to see Samui coming at him. Before he can counter, an arrow came past Samui left side and went for Killer Bee. Naruto shot his arrow at Bee once he landed, but of course aimed to make sure he didn't hit Samui. As Killer Bee dodged the arrow, he had to deal with Samui, which she used her sword to get him off balance. Killer Bee was about to counterattack, but his attention was diverted when Omoi came out of the smokescreen that was now dissipating. He made sure to distract Bee long enough for Naruto to come from above to surprise him with a sudden leg strike on his shoulder. This caused Killer Bee to be stunned for a moment, which Omoi used his sheath to hold Bee's arms long enough for Samui to get his glasses. Killer Bee would have done something, but he was caught once again since Naruto placing his bow onto Bee to decrease Bee's chance of extending his arms to try anything. Samui would have caught him at that moment, but Killer Bee had a physical advantage, which he used it by leaning towards the right, which got Omoi off balance. With this, Killer Bee was able to get some leverage, and got himself free from Omoi's hold, but also away from Samui's grasp. Killer Bee then moved away from the others, while taking out Naruto's bow off of him. Once he did, he decided to end this battle after dodging an attack from Karui, who waited for her chance to get him. Later. Currently, Killer Bee was now standing in front of his probable genin team, as they were tied up together. In the end, Killer Bee used his supreme speed to move fast enough to knock out everyone, except for Naruto. Unlike the other three, Naruto was able to avoid 2 strikes before Killer Bee took him down. Killer Bee raps a complimented to Naruto, Samui, and Omoi on working together, while Karui got one that made her look like an idiot. With that, Killer Bee passed all 3 of them, while Karui would be sent back to the academy. Karui was upset about it, But then Naruto spoke up saying that since she was part of their team, then he would join her if she was forced to leave, making sure that Karui doesn't have to be humiliated by herself. Samui and Omoi agreed with Naruto on it, even though Omoi was having second thoughts about it. As Killer Bee was going to make his decision, Karui spoke up saying that she failed and would go back to the academy by herself since it wouldn't be right for the others. Plus she secretly thought if Naruto was sent back to the academy, then she would hunted down by all his fangirls. As they waited for Killer Bee to say that they are going back to the academy, they then heard Killer Bee say that they passed. Everyone was surprised to hear on what he said. Killer Bee started to explain on what this test was about. Think the bell test from Kakashi. End flashback. As Naruto finished thinking about his genin test, his mind went back to the mission that he was currently in. Right now, Team 9 with Killer Bee as their sensei, was doing a C rank mission. The mission was to go hunt down some bandits that were robbing and causing trouble from one of their allies, which they were sent to take care of it. After 5 days of tracking them from the last place they strike, they were able to find the group. They spotted about 15 men enjoying the fruits of their latest steal. They were planning something, when Omoi spotted something from the group. He saw that the leader of the group was a nuke nin which they Samui identified as a C-class criminal. Killer Bee said that he won't go up against them, unless he have to since this is where they were allowed to shine. Naruto planned things out. He would attack at long distance, provide not only cover for everyone, but also keep an eye out for anyone trying to escape. Samui, Omoi, and Karui would lead in a surprise attack that Naruto would provide with his arrows. After waiting for about 5 minutes for everyone to take their place, Naruto summoned one of his arrows and equipped it with a paper smokescreen. He took aim for the most appropriate spot for all of his team to take advantage, but mostly to make sure to blind the wanted C-class nuke nin. The bandits didn't know what hit them once Naruto's arrow exploded on contact. The black smokescreen that filled the area had caught most of the bandits there, but mostly at the nuke nin. From there, Samui quickly ran for the first 3 bandits that were close to her, which she quickly took them down with extreme speed and precision. Karui took down 2 bandits herself with strong back head kicks. Omoi jumped down from the tree that he snuck in, to land on top of his opponent instant to bring down, then moved on to the next 2 that were in front of him. Naruto kept a close eye from the tree that he was in to make sure that everyone was alright. As he looked on, he noticed that some of the bandits got into groups, getting ready to counterattack. Naruto saw that it was kind of like a shinobi formation, which he guessed that the nuke nin taught them. He decided to stop that by sending one of his explosive paper bomb arrow at the side of them, which not only the explosion informed his friends on where the explosive was, but also to push back the bandits into the now clearing smokescreen, as well as disrupt their formation. Once the bandits were back into the smokescreen, one of the scattered bandits got up on his feet to just find Samui kicking him in the gut and neck chop him into the ground. Naruto watched as his team continues to finish up the ambush, but also wondering on where the C-rank nuke nin was hiding since he was trying to find him. Behind Naruto, the C-rank nuke nin was silently coming behind Naruto. He found Naruto sitting at a branch, observing the battle, as well as preparing to fire another arrow as cover fire for his team as they fought. The nuke nin found Naruto from the last explosion since he figures if he caught him, then he can try and get his men back as well as get rid of his followers. Once he was in strike position, the nuke nin strike at him with a kunai in hand only to see that Naruto switched his bow around and used it as a defensive weapon. Naruto used his bow to slap away the kunai held hand, but also used his arrow as a weapon as well. Naruto attempted to stab the nuke nin only for him to get his barring back and avoid it, but that was what Naruto wanted since he used the stab down as a decoy to flip himself with the momentum and caught the nin. He then maneuvered his bow to securely get the kunai off his opponent's hands, then used the bow as a chokehold, which he succeeded in taking him out. His team has finished taking care of the bandits, when Omoi spoke up. "Oi, where's the missing nuke nin? Shouldn't he be around here?" Worried. "Oh, He must have run off and left his comrades here since he figured he couldn't beat us," answered Karui. "You're probably right, Karui. However, it would be cool if we track him down to make sure that not another uncool group happens again," Samui stated coolly. Karui and Omoi agreed, which they were going to go get Naruto and Killer Bee when Killer Bee came out from where he was watching to tell them that it wasn't necessary. "Are you sure, Sensei? It could cause trouble if we let him get away," Omoi said as he started to mumble on a lot of the possible or impossible scenarios, but was stopped when Killer Bee said, "It cool, don't be fool, our little maelstrom has got it all." "I said I at rapping." Before they can wonder on what Killer Bee meant, they heard a thump to see the C-rank Nuke Nin tied up and unconscious while Naruto was carrying him over his shoulder. Naruto explained that the Nuke Nin came behind him in order to take him down, but Naruto got the better of him. With that, they concluded that the mission was complete. Once they give the bandits to the proper forces to be arrest and/or prison, they all went back home. As they were going home, Karui smiled since not only did they completed their second C-rank mission, they were going to get a little bit of a bonus from the Nuke Nin. As they were going, Samui noticed Naruto had one of his old texts on Fuinjutsu. "Naruto-san, why are you rereading your old Fuinjutsu book? I can understand you want to be Seal Master, but don't you think you would progress further if you get a more advanced version?" Samui stated. Naruto sighed. "I would like that, Samui. However, I already read almost all the Fuinjutsu scrolls and book in the Shinobi archives, but they were almost all the same knowledge like before. Plus I asked Killer Bee if there was any Fuin specialist in Kumo, but he said that most are either mid to high mid-rate specialists, but said that I was already near the knowledge that they have." Samui nodded in Naruto's plight as he then continued to speak. "If anything, I would like to get scrolls from someplace else, but many shinobi villages are very protective of their Fuinjutsus and stuff." Finis HD Naruto. While thinking, if only I could go back to Konoha and get to my father's library, since I remember the Raikage said that my father was just as impressive in Fuinjutsu as my ancestors in the Uzumaki clan. "I can see your plight. It is uncool that you can't get any more training without someone who is master in the art to teach you. Too bad that any of your family in Uzu no Kuni isn't around. You can probably ask one of them, if they trusted you enough, of course." It was then that Naruto got the idea. Uzu no Kuni. My mother's side of the family, that's it. "Samui, if I could, I would kiss you right now," Naruto stated, which for a tiny moment, Samui actually blushed, but was repressed down. "What do you mean?" asked Samui. "I'm going to my ancestor's home," said Naruto, which Samui didn't get but listened to Naruto. "If my family was as skilled in seals, then it would only make sense that they must have hid something for only those of with their bloodline could get, since after all, I am an Uzumaki in both name and in blood," smiled Naruto. With this, Naruto had made a new course in his life, which he knew if anything, he has to go to Uzu no Kuni to see not only his ancestors' home, but also find any of the treasures that were probably still hidden in it. 2 weeks later, Naruto was currently walking near the border of Hai no Kuni. As he was walking, he couldn't help but shudder a little bit since he still remembered the time he lived in Konoha, the terrible times he had to endure before he was thrown to his death, and his decision to stay in Kumo. As he was walking, he still wore the same outfit, except now he was wearing a black mask that covered his entire head, except his eyes, like Batman without the ears. The reason why Naruto was wearing a mask was to keep his identity a secret, since it doesn't want any Konoha shinobi that may be near the border of Hai no Kuni to recognize him. This idea came from the Raikage as part of a condition that Naruto must keep his identity safe until the right time came. As Naruto got the Raikage to agree for him to go to Uzu no Kuni, but this agreement can only be achieved if Naruto agrees to wear the mask that was specially made for him to hide his identity, even from the Byakugan. As Naruto was walking closer to his ancestral homeland, he was being accompanied by the rest of his team, Team 9 except for Killer Bee. Instead of Killer Bee leading his team, it was his other fellow Jinchuriki, Yugito Ni. The reason Killer Bee wasn't leading Team 9 The Raikage needed Killer Bee to do something else. Along with Yugito, C was also accompanying them since the Raikage declared this mission a C rank to a possible B rank considering on what this excavation mission turns up. C was going along with Naruto and his team cause of the possible rank change, even though it was unlikely, but more for protection in case Konoha figures out Naruto's identity. While walking, he couldn't help but be grateful to A for letting him go on this personal mission, especially considering some of the convincing he had to give for him to be allowed to go. Flashback. It was early evening when Naruto went up to the Raikage's office. The only reason he was meeting A at this time was because of the 2D rank missions he had to do as well as the early morning training with Samui and the mid-afternoon training with the rest of his team. He spotted Mabui finishing up filing some paperwork, when she spotted him. Mabui asked Naruto on why he was here, which he explained to her that he needed to speak with A about something. Mabui agreed to see if the Raikage would see him now, or tomorrow morning. After some waiting, Mabui said that A would meet him now, which he was happy about. Once inside, A looked at Naruto to see that he had a serious face. "So Naruto, why do you want to meet me at this time of the night?" asked A. "I was hoping for you to allow a mission that I want you to approve," answered Naruto. "What mission would that be?" Question A. "The approval of you to allow me to go to Uzu no Kuni," answered Naruto. A asked on why he want to go to Uzu no Kuni. Naruto explained that he want to go and see if he can find any type of jutsu or fuinjutsu that he can learn. A explained that Kumo has already sent a few shinobi teams in the past to see if they can find anything as well, but came back empty-handed. Naruto nodded, but then said, "Really? Well, did any of those teams have an Uzumaki with them?" Asking A. "Well, no, why does that matter?" answered A. "Well, if my family was known to be the most skillful in fuinjutsu, then it would only make sense that only those from the main branch from his family would be able to find or open any kind of lock or door with their blood," said Naruto. I thought for a bit since it did make sense. Plus what Naruto said about all the teams that Kumo sent didn't have an Uzumaki in their team. In fact, Kumo never had an Uzumaki in their village until Naruto came into it. "Well, you do have a point there," A said as he continued to think about Naruto's request. Naruto stayed quiet since he saw that A was really thinking about it, which he hoped that A would let him go. He decided to add one more enticement for A to allow this request. "Raikage-sama, getting A's attention. You remember that you told me about my parents, my father being the Yondaime Hokage, my mother, the former Jinchuriki of Kyuubi as well as the possible heir of the Uzumaki clan. You know that my father was said to have been on somewhat equal terms in fuinjutsu as the Uzumaki clan. Knowing my father, he probably left my inheritance to the third, but probably made sure that only someone from his family could open it since Konoha has yet to use the Hiraishin no Jutsu on all the other countries, especially people who want it like Danzo and the other members of the council," stated Naruto. I took Naruto's words seriously since he made a good point, but stopped when Naruto continued to talk. "It is very doubtful that I can get my father's will, as well as my inheritance from Konoha now, which includes the jutsu, but also any of the fuinjutsu that my father and mother left for me to learn. That's why I need to go to Uzu no Kuni to find anything from my ancestors, the Uzumaki clan," finished Naruto. With that, A agreed to Naruto's request on letting him go to Uzu no Kuni. "Naruto, you will leave for Uzu no Kuni in 2 days. You will leave with your team, Team 9, but instead of B who will lead, it will be led by Yugito as well as C, for not only medical support but also for backup since you'll be traveling near Hai no Kuni, where Konoha shinobi are located," said A. Naruto was glad to hear that A agreed to his mission. A declared Naruto's request for his personal mission to a C rank mission. Before Naruto left, A gave Naruto a special mask that had not only hide his face from any Konoha shinobi, but also has a seal that prevents in Hyuga from seeing through the mask. With that, Naruto left to get ready. End flashback. As Naruto continued to prepare on getting to his ancestors' former land, he also took the time to practice his elemental training that Killer Bee started him and his team a month ago. Last month, after they completed a simple D-rank mission, Killer Bee decided to teach them about their elemental affinity training. Once he did, Killer Bee found out on which affinity they have. Karui had lighting and earth affinity. Omoi also had lightning affinity. Samui had both water and lightning affinity. As the rest were glad to know their affinities were, they were surprised to see on what Naruto had. Naruto had wind, lightning and water affinity. With that, Killer Bee started on teaching them on how to harness their abilities. For the past couple of weeks on his free time, Naruto trained on his wind as well as lightning affinity. In 1 month time, Naruto was able to master the leaf-cutting technique with his hands that another shinobi in Kumo had taught him since Killer Bee doesn't have wind affinity. Currently, Naruto was still practicing on perfecting his leaf-cutting technique to make sure that it felt like second nature to him. Naruto had already mastered his lightning training back when he was still in the academy since Killer Bee had taught him the lightning clone jutsu. Naruto continued to train on his wind technique until Yugito got everyone's attention. She informed them that they were a day away to the dock that was in the border of Hai no Kuni, where they will take a ship to the former Uzu no Kuni. Yugito then turned to Naruto. You do know what this means. Yugito looked at Naruto. No matter what happens, you must keep that mask on until we get back to Kumo, since we'll be entering a village where Konoha shinobi roam around. If any of them, no matter how unlikely, was able to recognize you, they'll try anything to get you back, even with our treaty with them. Yugito finished, while narrowing her eyes, which Naruto knows that she meant that Konoha will want to take back the Kyuubi. Naruto nodded, agreeing with Yugito's orders. After explaining the situation as well as giving Naruto the code name, N, they all continued to their destination. Night. The seas were calm as the moonless night sky made the diamond light stars were the only dazzling lights right now. As the night stars showed the amazing beauty of the night sky, which many would wonder in amazement, one wasn't fully enjoying what the stars was giving. Naruto was now standing at the top deck of the ship that he was riding. As he looked at the night sky, his thoughts were on something else. He was thinking about on what he will find in Uzu no Kuni, as well as seeing his clan's old homeland. It has been 2 days and nights since he and his team set sailed towards Uzu no Kuni. After getting toward the seaport, they ran into a couple of Konoha shinobi, but with the pass that sea had that was signed by the wreckage, there wasn't much trouble, except the occasional Konoha shinobi looking at them. Once they found a ship that would take them to Uzu no Kuni, they took the ship and were now on their way on a 3-day 2-night sea voyage. As Naruto continued to think, his thoughts were interrupted when someone walked up behind him and tapped his shoulder. He turned to see that it was Samui that came behind him. With the night sky, Naruto thought on how beautiful Samui looked to him right now, with her eyes matching the starlight sky. Samui also thought the same thing since, even though she mentally denied it, she couldn't help but stare at Naruto's face, which had a mature look on it right now, with his eyes showing the emotions that are in his soul. Samui broke the awkward silence between them. Naruto-san, it's late in the evening, you know. You should get some rest now. It would be uncool to stay up so late since tomorrow, we'll reach Uzu no Kuni tomorrow. Samui stated. I know, but there are so many things that are running through my mind right now. Said Naruto. Like what? Samui asked curiously. It's hard to explain. It's just that I will be reaching my family's ancestral village that got me thinking about some things. Answered Naruto. You mean, that you think you might be desecrating them by taking items and stuff like that from their burial ground or something? It's cool. I can understand that since this is more personal gain for you than honoring them. Is it something like that? Asked Samui. No, it's not that, even though there is some truth on what you said, but it isn't that. What I'm thinking about is not my ancestors, but my family. Said Naruto. Samui was confused about it, but stopped when Naruto continued. You see, before our Genin graduation exam, the Reikage held up the end of our bet, since it was obvious that I will become Rookie of the Year. He told me who were my parents, which stunned me since I already knew my father, either though I was too stubborn to put two to two together or I just didn't want to believe it. Samui was stunned to know that the Reikage had told Naruto on whose his parents are, since for the longest time, she was just as curious on who were Naruto's parents. Her thoughts were interrupted as Naruto looked at her. Samui-chan, even though you probably won't admit it or not, you're my best friend. Can you keep this a secret from everyone until I decide to tell them? Samui nodded in agreement. You see, my parents' names are Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. Said Naruto. I see, so they are your parents. I don't know about this Kushina, but I have heard your father's name before, I just don't know from where. Said Samui. You see my father was the strongest and fastest man alive, even faster than the Reikage. He was the Yondaime Hokage. Naruto said seriously. Samui was stunned to know that Naruto was the son of Konoha's strongest Hokage. What stunned her next was what Naruto said next about his mother as well as himself. My mother, she was the former Jinchuriki of Kyuubi, which it is now sealed inside me. Samui just stood there next to him as she can tell from all the times she trained and hang out with him that this was something serious, both mental and emotional. Samui then saw Naruto turned around to hide the tears that were starting to come down from Naruto's face. She then heard him say things like on how could his own father seal the fox inside him. Why both his parents died and leaving him alone with the curse that they placed on him. How could they or the third Hokage leave him alone in a village that constantly beat and torture him? There were so many questions that he wanted answered, but knew that no matter what, he will never get an answer. Samui saw Naruto saddens and barrier in his heart fall apart as he let out the tears that he has been holding for a while. Naruto felt the tears on his face fall to the ground, which he thought he finally settled his issues, but turned out that he just buried them inside his heart for the time being, but started to awaken when he was going to Uzu no Kuni and his family's homeland. Naruto was starting to let everything go, which he suddenly felt Samui grab him to turn him around, which she hugged him tightly. For Samui, this was weird since she would have never done this for anyone, she would have just left them alone, but with Naruto she just had this urge to comfort him. Naruto was surprised at what Samui was hugging him since, like Samui, he thought that Samui would just leave him alone to deal with it. Samui just held him tightly as he cried in her arms. They were like that until Samui felt Naruto just cry himself to sleep, which she just quietly and softly laid him near a safe position on deck. She found a blanket that was nearby and placed it over the both of them, which Samui slept with her back on the deck wall, while placing Naruto next to her. Morning. Right now, the morning sun was shining bright when Yugito and the other woke up. As they were waking up, they overheard Karui say that Naruto and Samui weren't in their hang beds. All of them went out into the ship's deck to see if they were already up. They looked around for a bit until Yugito found them, which she informed the others as well as tell them to be quiet. They walked towards Yugito to see what she was seeing. In front of them, they saw Naruto sleeping peacefully with his left arm wrapped around Samui, bringing her closer to him, while Samui slept with her head lying next to his neck. She also had her left arm on Naruto's chest near his heart. Everyone had to admit that it was a sweet to see them in such a cute position. Yugito told them to let them sleep for a bit longer, until she can get a picture of them like this. Morning. It was a normal morning for Team 9, besides the fact that Samui threatened them to not tell anyone about this morning's little sleeping incident with the threat of death with her very cold eyes on them, which they agreed, but Yugito planned to use the photo she had as blackmail or insurance. After breakfast, everyone prepared to get themselves ready since in a few hours they'll be reaching Uzu no Kuni in a few hours. During that time, everyone looked out into the ocean to see the amazing whirlpools that made Uzu no Kuni famous. It's because of these whirlpools that made the voyage a little harder to complete since the ship had to be steered carefully to avoid being ed into the constant whirlpools. Noon. Currently, everyone were walking along the beach as they made their way towards the path that will lead them to the Edi village that the former Uzumaki clan lived. They used the path that previous teams used to get to the village. As everyone was walking, the genin were surprised to see how this place was recovering naturally with nature, since they can still see some remnants of the previous shinobi war that destroyed Uzu no Kuni. For Naruto, it was a reminder on where he came from, since he at least knows where half his family started out. Once they made it to the point where former Kumo teams went, they started to make their way inland where the Edi village was located. Edi village. Everyone looked around to see the amazing ruins that were able to stand the test of time and war. This is the first time for everyone to be in the Edi village. Naruto taking it all in, since this was his ancestors' home, which he couldn't help but feel some bit of ecstatic and saddened, since this a place where almost all his family has died, while the rest just spread out throughout the elemental continent. After taking it all in, everyone decided to set up camp first before they start exploring the place. Yugito ordered that today will be a day for preparation, since she wanted everyone to be safe first before they start exploring and searching the former village in complete detail. Naruto and C set up camp for everyone, tents, a campfire for later, the whole set. Samui and Yugito went to get fresh water from a river that was nearby. Finally, Karui and Omoi went outside the campground to set up any type of alert traps so they can be alarmed if anyone unwelcome comes close to them. After a couple of hours of setting up and preparing escape routes of any kind, as well as secret gathering site for emergency, the recovery team settled down for the night, since it was starting to get sunset. Night. Everyone was sitting around the campfire as they had an entertaining night for them. C had brought some playing cards to play with at night. Everyone played a couple of card games, like matching, shedding, blackjack and poker, which Naruto always win in poker. It was late at night as everyone was turning in for tomorrow, except C, who is doing first watch for the night until he passes it on to Yugito, to begin their excavation on the ruined village. Naruto was the last one to stay up. He sat near the campfire as he was deep in thought. It was then that he felt someone coming up behind him. He turned to see Samui, looking at him with her cool expression, which didn't show much, but Naruto knew her well enough to know what she felt. "Hey Samui, aren't you going to bed now?" Naruto asked. "I'll be going to sleep in a moment. I'm more curious on why you aren't in going bed yet." "It's cool to stay up for a bit, but it's uncool if you stay up all night," said Samui. "I know. I'm just thinking about something before I go to sleep." "Actually Samui, I'm glad that you're still up for a bit," Naruto stated. "Yeah, why is that?" asked Samui. "Because I wanted to thank you for what you did for me yesterday night," answered Naruto. "For what I did? What is that I did?" Samui asked curiously. "For listening to me last night, for you just letting me rant on what I was holding deep inside my heart. You know, when I first heard about who my parents are, I thought I had settled it after we had that break from the graduation exam, but it looks like I didn't, since the closer I got here, the more it bubbled out into the surface," Naruto explained. Samui nodded, since she could understand. She knows that when a person wants answers to themselves, they want it, but it is impossible to answer question when the person who had the answers are dead, so you intend to think on the worst case scenarios and such. Naruto continued on by thanking her for the hug as well, since he felt he needed, which Samui nodded in response, which she still wondered on why she did that. After some more light conversation, Naruto decided to hit the sack for tomorrow, which Samui did the same. Morning. Naruto was walking through some of the old ruins of building that would have likely been used as temples or something. As he walking around, he carefully checked every possible nook and cranny that he can see. He has been checking around old building like this for the past 2 hours. After first light and everyone had breakfast, they all split up to go search the areas to see if they can find anything out of the ordinary. The Edi village that they were on was a large area that would take about 3 days of careful search. The village was located near south of the center of a group of islands that make up Uzu no Kuni. As Naruto searched, Samui was near him also looking for any type of seal or symbol that would show. Not far from their location, Karui was with Yugito, who was searching all the empty homes that were covered with moss, overgrown vines and such. C and Omoi were looking around the terrain to see if anything sticks out. Naruto had just finished searching the building, which he turned to Samui to see that she found nothing. Naruto sighed as he looked out to see the river that was close by the village. The river itself was also amazing since there were a couple of powerful, rapid-moving whirlpools going along the stream that led to the ocean on the opposite side of the island where they landed. As he looked at the whirlpools, his gut was telling him that there was something going on in the whirlpools that he wasn't seeing. He put that thought at the back of his mind and continued on searching the next building with Samui. 2 days later. It has been 3 days since they arrived and nothing. Everyone was exhausted from all the searching that they went through. From every corner of the former village, they found nothing. Even the notes from the past team that they had about possible sealed places, where Naruto checked with his blood, were complete duds. Man, what a waste of our time. 3 days of searching and nothing. Karui complained as she showed her frustration by waving her arms up into the air. I know this has been time-consuming, but we had to search every part of the village since unlike the others' teams, Naruto is the only Uzumaki that Kumo ever had, plus as far we know he is the heir of the Uzumaki clan. Said C. With that, Yugito said that the mission has been completed with no success of digging up any kind of treasure. With that, Yugito ordered them to start packing up since their ride back to the mainland will arrive at sunset for them to be picked up. As everyone was starting to pick up everything up, Naruto just looked at the whirlpools and realized something. We did check every part of this village, which includes the mission reports on past teams on possible sealed hiding spot, but nothing. But more curious is that the whirlpools are turning in a clockwise when we're in the southern part of the equator. That's it. Naruto thought in realization. Naruto quickly went over to Yugito's backpack and took out a long rope that was 25 yards long. He quickly but gently took off all his clothes until he only had on his swimsuit he was wearing underneath his clothes. He tied the rope around his waist, then ran towards the river immediately, but left the other end of the rope around a large boulder near the river. Yugito and the others were wondering on what Naruto was doing. Karui blushed a bit when she saw Naruto stripped off his clothes, only wearing his swimsuit. Everyone then saw him tie the rope onto a boulder near the river edge and around himself. They were then stunned to see him jump into the river, going into the center of the whirlpool. As Naruto swam towards the rapid-moving whirlpool, he took a bite on his right thumb to let some of his blood drip out. Once he was inside the whirlpool's current, he swam with it to make it easier to swim underneath and reach the bottom of the river. Even though it was river, the river was about 4 meters deep and 10 meters long. As Naruto reached the bottom, he quickly summoned 2 of his arrows to use as claws to hold onto the bottom. As he crawled towards middle with his arrows, he was having trouble holding his breath. He would use his charka to help him, but with the ground so soft and unstable, plus with the rapid moving water, he can't even walk on it since he yet to start water walking training. Once he reached the middle, he quickly checked around the area where the water was the most violent. It was around this time that he is running out of breath. He continues to search until he hits something with his arrow. He quickly started to dig on what he hit to see something slick, but carved. He dug to find some kind of chest. As he touched it, the blood on his thumb hit a certain part on the chest which did something around the whirlpool. The whirlpool's rushing water started to subside. The water was calmed enough for him to untie the rope around him and tie around the chest. Once he tied the rope around the chest, he swam to the surface, where he spotted Yugito and the others. Yugito and the others watched as Naruto swam underneath the water. They waited for a bit until they saw the water calm down and him coming out of the water, gasping for air. He then yelled out, "Pull the rope." They then saw him dive back down under the water. C and Omoi did what Naruto said, which they started to pull. Karui, Samui and Yugito watched as they saw them struggling to bring whatever object that Naruto found. As they were pulling, they noticed the whirlpool started to increase in strength and speed, which made it harder. Karui and Yugito helped pull as well as Samui waited for Naruto to come out. After a bit of pulling, they saw Naruto standing on the shallow part of the water, while helping drag in the chest that he found. C and Omoi helped Naruto get the chest onto the shore, while Samui gave Naruto a towel to help dry up. Once the chest was on shore, Yugito and C expected it for a bit to see anything on it. They then saw the Uzumaki symbol on the center of the lock. It was then that Yugito said, "Mission complete. Status, successfully found item." Smiled. "It looks like our time here was not a complete waste after all. Good work, Naruto." Praised C. "Thanks," said Naruto. "Alright, let open this up," stated Karui. Karui used her sword to try to open it, but when her sword contacted it, it glowed, then electrified Karui, which stunned her. Omoi looked at Karui, who was on the ground, saying, "A defense seal is placed on it, I bet. Guess it's what you get for rushing forward without checking it out." Which Karui just glared at Omoi. Naruto checked the seal on the lock to see what it had. Yugito and C also checked to see on what Naruto was doing. Naruto sighed. "As far as I can tell, this is a pretty powerful seal, designed to keep anyone from opening. If we had a powerful seal master, we'd probably be able to get it open. The only way I can think on getting this opened, is we need the key." Yugito and C also agreed since, even though they know little on Fuinjutsu, they do know that this was a masterpiece of Fuinjutsu. Naruto looked at the lock to see that they needed an octagon gem-like key that had the Uzumaki symbol in the center. With this, Yugito ordered C to take Karui and Samui to finish up taking down camp, while under Naruto's suggestion the rest will follow the river to see if they can find the key or anything to help them. Naruto, Yugito and Omoi followed the river until they reached the ocean while also looking at the river to see if anything odd about it. As they searched, Omoi spotted a small gleam at a distance from another nearby island. He pointed out to Naruto and Yugito, which Yugito brought out her binoculars to see what it was. She spotted a boat with people on it. With this, Yugito suggested they help clean up on the campsite, and then go check on the island to see what is going on after they secure their ship to stay put for a bit. Night. After cleaning up the campsite, everyone except C went to island that Yugito suggested going. Currently, C was staying at the vessel that was going to take them back to the mainland to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. He was also there for a bit of guard duty. Once it became dark, Team 9 and Yugito silently paddled a small boat that their ship had over the water, silently to avoid any detection. They made it to the island to see a group of people moving boxes around and such. Naruto was enraged since he can see that the place they are in was a burial ground which they were desecrating, especially when he saw some of the graves had Uzumaki symbols. Yugito decided to take action since she thought that this burial site might have a clue to the key that they need. Naruto was more than glad to take care of these men. Naruto ready his bow to fight, while Samui, Karui, Omoi and Yugito prepare for sneak attack. Naruto shot the first arrow, which started the attack. Later, Naruto was walking through the burial ground to see what he can find and salvage since these men almost completely desecrating most of his family resting place. After his team took care of the dozen men that were on this island, they quickly tied them up and got the guy in charge of them. It turned out that these men were importing and trading drugs, while using this island as a base of operation for storage. As he walked around the graveyards, he found the oldest of the graves have thankfully not been touched yet. As he checked the eldest graves, he spotted something on one of them. In the center of these graves, one of them had the symbol of the key that was needed in the chest. He quickly checked it to see that this grave was disturbed like the more recent graves that the men of the drug operation. He saw that the vines were torn off around the new vines that had overgrown it. He guessed that someone took what he guesses was the key to the chest. He quickly went to the men that Yugito and the others that they captured. He walked up to the one that was still conscious. You, tell me, who are you working for? Who's your boss? Ordered Naruto. I'm not going to tell you a thing, you brat, the guy said before looking at Yugito with a sneer, unless you can make it worth my while. Which Yugito felt disgusted as she saw the man looking at her with lust in his eyes. Naruto was quiet for a moment before saying, worth your while, huh? How this worth your while? Which he then grabbed the man. He dragged the man by his leg while preparing his shinobi wire. He looped the wire over a strong tree branch, 3 stories up, and tied it around the man's leg. He then proceeds to lift the man until he was upside down. Is this worth your while? Asked Naruto as he watched the man hanging upside down. You actually believe that this will intimidate me? Said the hostage, while he's starting to feel the blood rushing up his head. No, but this will. Said Naruto. He pulled the wire so the man's feet touched the branch, but let it go instantly, which dropped the man. He dropped back first, then the rest of him. He screamed going down, but then started to groan in pain as Naruto began to lift him again. Still not talking, because I can keep doing this all day long, or I can let my 3 girlfriends over here decide on how to give you a good time. Naruto stated, as point with his thumb at Yugito, Samui and Karui, who looked like they were ready to practice some torture techniques. The man was starting to get dizzy with the blood rushing towards his head, which only increased with the now back pain. After a couple of more minutes of torture, he was ready to talk. Okay, what do you want to know? Pleaded the man. Who's your boss and where is he right now? Questioned Naruto. His name is Gato, and he is in Nami no Kuni now. The man said as he gasps for air. Gato, wondered Naruto. I've heard of that name, Yugito said, getting everyone attention. He is businessman who owns a shipping company. It seems with this, he is also working on the underground drug trade as well. I wonder why he's in Nami no Kuni? Asked Omoi. Naruto just looked at the man to bring him towards his face by his collar and asked the same thing. He's there, to kill someone, a bridge builder, that's all I know. Said the henchman. With that, Yugito went behind the guy and knocked him out. With that, they quickly tied him up along with his other cronies and left. They made it to the boat where C and their captain for the voyage. After they set sail, everyone started to discuss about the information they have now. So, what did you guys found out? Question C. We may have found where the key might be for our little problem here. Answered Yugito, which she pulled out the scroll that had the chest that Naruto found. What are we going to do then, Yugito Taicho? Asked Karui. Well, Yugito thought for a moment. Well, first we'll notify Konoha about the drug dealers that are in Uzu no Kuni, but of course we won't tell them on what happened to their cargo. Stated Yugito, which she stared at Naruto, who smiled sheepily as he went and destroyed all the drug dealers' cargo to get back for desecrating the graves. Yugito then continued on. See, you'll take Karui and the chest back to Kumo to be guarded until we returned, as well as to give the Raikage a report on what's going on. Karui will come along with you as an extra pair of eyes, since I get the feeling about something which I can't explain. C nodded in understanding, while Karui smiled because she gets to go home a little earlier. Yugito then said, as you two are going back to Kumo, the rest of us will head for Nami no Kuni and hopefully find the bridge builder before Gato does. If we find him first, we'll be able to find Gato and get the key or where it's possible whereabouts. Said Yugito. Everyone nodded in agreement, which Naruto was glad to know that if they get there first, he can get the key to open up his family's chest open and continue the legacy of the Uzumaki family. Unknown to Naruto and the others, the Sandaime Hokage was preparing to give a mission to a certain team. The mission request that the Sandaime was going to give was to Team 7 led by Kakashi Hatake. Kakashi's team consists of the last and heir of the Uchiha heir, Sasuke Uchiha. His team also has Sakura Harun, the top kunoichi of the year, while the third and final member was the secret Jinchuriki of Sanbi, Ko. Alright then Kakashi, if you say your team is ready for a higher mission, this C-class mission will be a good start for them, stated the Sandaime Hokage. He explained to them that they will protect the bridge builder Tazuna from any type of bandits and such until he completes the mission. You know the story here. After the explanation, the Sandaime introduced them to their employer whose name was Tazuna. With that, Team 7 left later that day. With this event, both Konoha and Kumo teams are going to have a wild time. Konoha team. It has been a couple of days since Kakashi and Team 7 left Konoha in the protection mission for Tazuna. They were currently traveling to Nami no Kuni on a boat, which was the only way to get there. During the boat trip, he can't help but think about what has happened recently with his team. He first thought about his team and how they barely became Konoha Genin. He gave them the entire bell test, which they all failed. Of course he gave them a second chance, which Sasuke and Ko were able to get the part of teamwork, which Sakura followed their lead from their act of kindness or whatever. Once he passed them, he worked hard on all of them on improving their teamwork before he can teach them anything to do with ninjutsu. As he thought about his little Genin team, his eyes turned to all of them and thought about each one. Sakura Haruna was the Kunoichi of the year, this year in the Ninja Academy. For a while now, he noticed that Sakura was more into diets and looking good for Sasuke than actually training to become a true Kunoichi. Of course, Kakashi knows that she has excellent chakra control as well as great potential in genjutsu, but that's if Sakura can get rid of that fangirl stage of hers, she can be an excellent Kunoichi. Next was Sasuke, who Kakashi knows that he needs a lot of help. What Kakashi meant about help, it was to help Sasuke let go of his revenge thing. He remembers the Uchiha incident very well. After that incident he saw the psychological reports on how Sasuke wants revenge on his brother and became a very broody and solitary person who doesn't want any kind of help from anyone, along with wanting power. Finally was Ko, which was a special case for Ko, which he knows is Konoha's newest Jinchuriki. He was shocked when the Sandaime told him about Ko, that he is the Jinchuriki of Sanbi. Flashback. Kakashi was in the Hokage's office when the third told him about Ko. You mean to tell me that Ko is a Jinchuriki, just like Naruto? After what happened with Naruto, you actually created another Jinchuriki, stated Kakashi. Kakashi was one of the few that didn't see Naruto as the Kyuubi. In fact, he was one of the few shinobi that look after him when he had the chance. Unfortunately, the day Naruto was killed by the mob of bloodlust and vengeful villagers, he was on a mission. So when he found out that Naruto had been killed and saw how the villagers were completely happy, he couldn't help but think on how this village had somehow lost some of their dignity. In fact, the times that he visits the monument that had the names of all the shinobi that died as heroes for the village. As he stared at it, his always thought, Obito, I'm sorry I couldn't protect Rin. Sensei, forgives me for not protecting your legacy. Now, Kakashi was being told that if he was being Ko-newest sensei, who is the Jinchuriki of the Sanbi. The Sandaime has told him the whole story about Ko, who isn't just a Jinchuriki but also from one of Danzo's disbanded root program. So it was because of the elders that you proceed to make another Jinchuriki? Questioned Kakashi. Yes, even though I was against this, they were also right about it, said Sarutobi. They took a moment of silence before the third spoke again. Kakashi, the reason I'm not only placing Sasuke as your team, but also Ko, since you can train Sasuke on his Sharingan when he awakens it, but also keep an eye on Ko since you may be able to handle him if he goes out of control, but also see what Danzo has been doing with him. Kakashi understand on why the Sandaime put Sasuke and Ko under his command. End flashback. For the past month, Kakashi oversaw Ko's training, but noticed that he hasn't been so open about himself. He acted more like one of Danzo's root agents as well as notices him taking in any information about Sasuke. As he looked upon Ko, he can't help but think that it should be Naruto on his team since unlike Ko, from the times he has seen Naruto, he can tell that Naruto had a lot of drive and determination that many powerful shinobi have, like the Sandaime, Jiraiya and his deceased sensei, the Yondaime Hokage. Kakashi's thought turned from his genin team and his past mistakes, to the mission at hand. After 2 days of leaving Konoha, Kakashi and his team were ambushed by 2 rogue nin. Naturally, he decided to test his genin to see how well they react. He was impressed that both Sasuke and Ko defeated both the rogues without much difficulty, while Sakura was smart enough to guard Tazuna. It wasn't after interrogating Tazuna a bit that he found about Tazuna's lie on the mission request. You all know the story. After some discussion, Kakashi asked his genin on what course of action they should take. Naturally, Ko decided to go back to the village since he is someone who follows the rules as well as following Danzo's own orders on not wasting his time on trivial things like right or wrong if it wasn't for the village's sake. Sasuke voted on going on with the mission since he got excited on fighting more shinobi to help increase his strength as well as gain more power out of it. Sakura also agreed to continue the mission, even though she was a little scared. She will follow Sasuke anywhere and agree with him on anything like a lost little puppy. Once they passed the mist that was covering the island of Nami no Kuni, everyone looked at the bridge that Tazuna was building before they reached the shore. When they landed, they quickly followed Tazuna to his house, where his family is waiting for him. As they were making their way, Kakashi was thinking about had happened earlier with the 2 rogue nins. Last time was Chunin. This time there will be no Chunin but Junin LV Shinobi, high-level assassin. Depressed Kakashi thought. It was about 30 minutes after they landed that Ko spotted something and shot a kunai at it. They found a white rabbit out cold, beneath the kunai. Ko suggested that they cook it since rabbit was taste, which Sakura was against since it was cute. As Sakura and Ko were arguing, Kakashi thought it was weird, since it was summer and yet the rabbit had a white cold which meant someone must have taken care of it in a cold area. It was then his shinobi instincts took over. It was then that Kakashi told everyone to duck as a giant sword was about to slice them apart. They evaded to see the sword struck a tree, where the person who threw it standing on it. Later. Right now, Kakashi was trapped in a water prison jutsu. When Zabuza appeared, both Kakashi and Zabuza fought on even ground, before Zabuza trapped him. As Kakashi being trapped in the jutsu, he watched as his students fight against their enemy, the demon of the mist, Zabuza. After Zabuza imprisoned Kakashi, he created a water clone to take care of Tazuna and the genin. Sakura stayed at the sidelines while Ko and Sasuke were trying to beat Zabuza's clone. They continue to fight, even though Kakashi told them to run, but refused since both boys know that without Kakashi, they will be killed instantly. It even got worse when Sasuke started to get more afraid of Zabuza, since Zabuza explained about the graduation test that Mizu once did long ago. A few more minutes of fighting, both boys were nearly down for the count. Kakashi watched as Sasuke and Ko were about to reach their limits. The clone was near the boys, ready to kill them, while the real Zabuza said, "You know what, I won't consider yourselves as shinobi until you are in my bingo book." Which his clone was ready to slash at them with a clone version of the executioner sword. All of a sudden, something really fast passes Team 7, Tazuna, and Zabuza's clone towards the real Zabuza. The flying object went so fast that it was barely visible, but Zabuza caught it with his only free hand. Everyone looked at him to see that Zabuza has caught an arrow that was aimed at his heart. Where did this come from? He said, but then noticed on the bow that it had some kind of seal on it. It started to sizzle silently until it sizzled like a sparkler. It was then that Zabuza realized what it was, which he threw it away from him, but it was too late. The arrow was only 2 feet away from Zabuza before it blew up, creating a powerful 5 meters explosion. The explosion was so great for Zabuza, that he was forced to move away from Kakashi, which broke the water prison, but also the lack of concentration also dispelled his water clone. Once Zabuza had gotten himself together, he yelled out, "What was that?" He then got his answer as Team 7 looked behind them to hear the coming footsteps from the mist. There in front of them was a young person, wearing a black mask that only revealed his piercing blue cerulean eyes. On his left, he carried his bow, while his right also prepared the arrow with the bow at hand. Everyone wondered who this person is, but then heard him say, "Old man," getting Tizuna's attention, "are you by chance a bridge builder who is being hunted by Gato?" Asked him. Tizuna nervously said yes, since he doesn't know if this kid was also an assassin that Gato sent to kill him. Everyone was tense as this was happening, but then they were relieved when he said, "I guess then this is your lucky day because we were looking for you because you can lead us to our target, Gato." Zabuza watched and heard on what the kid said. He then thought, his target is Gato. Who is this kid and why is he here? More importantly, why is he after Gato? Pondered Zabuza. Before he can think of it anymore, he felt someone get behind him. He dodged to see that it was Kakashi, who was back into the fight. Zabuza was starting to get annoyed since he now had this kid to deal with. But just then, he felt another presence calmly walking towards him. Kakashi also noticed this presence. Both of them watch and turned their head to see someone coming from Zabuza, right side. The mist started to clear enough to see a young woman, with long blonde hair woman and cat-like eyes wearing a Kumo headband on her forehead. She then said, "Zabuza, the demon, surrender now or you're going to get a very hard beating." Team 7 and Tizuna watched on what was going with Kakashi and Zabuza. Their attention then turned to see two more people coming out. It was Samui and Omoi. As Team 7 and Tizuna was wondering on why Kumo shinobi were here, Naruto was having some mixed feeling getting near any Konoha shinobi, since he remembered that a lot of Konoha shinobi, except a few, left him alone or part of the mobs that tried to kill him before. Zabuza watched cautiously as Kakashi and this kunoichi from Kumo. He was wondering on how to deal with this. Not only was Zabuza thinking about it, Kakashi was also wondering on who this kunoichi is, as well what his genin team going to do with the rest of her team. Before they can think of anything, Zabuza's senses were tingling about something was coming. He turned to the boy wearing the dark mask getting his bow ready to fire at him. Team 7 was watching when they heard the boy with the bow starting to take aim. They heard the bow being pulled, which Sasuke took note that the bow's string was very tight and strong. It also told him that the person using the bow was strong since the string he was seeing was perfectly straight and tight, which would require a lot of strength in order to use it. Zabuza was about to try and take them down, which Kakashi and Yugito, who they don't know yet, took their defenses. But just before Zabuza's strike, he was taken out by Senbon needles. Before he even fell onto the water, another shinobi came out of nowhere to catch his body. Before they can ask on what happened, the newcomer spoke up. "Thank you, I have been following Zabuza for a while now. Thanks to you, I was able to take him out." With a soft, smooth tone, Kakashi and Yugito recognized the white mask that the newcomer was wearing, that this shinobi was a Anbu from Kiri. Also by the sound of the shinobi's voice, that the person was just as young as the genin, maybe a little older. Kakashi asked the Kiri nin to check on Zabuza's body to make sure he was dead. The Kiri nin allowed it to see that he was dead since he had no pulse. Once Kakashi checked, the Kiri nin took Zabuza's body away, but not before thanking Kakashi and others for their distraction. After the Kiri nin left, Kakashi's attention quickly turned to Yugito since he was curious on wondering on why Kumo nin were here. He also checked his genin team to see that the Kumo nin stood aside from Team 7 and Tizuna. Before he can ask, he started to feel the effects of using the Sharingan, which he fell onto one knee. He was exhausted, but luckily, Kakashi only used the Sharingan for a bit and the battle wasn't long. Kakashi took a breath before jumping towards his team, while Yugito went to her team. Kakashi was about to kneel again, but Sakura quickly went to his side to help stay up. Once Kakashi was focused, as well as placing his headband to cover his Sharingan, he began to ask what he wanted. "Okay, even though I'm grateful for what just happened, I'm curious on why a Kumo team are here. Even though we have an alliance with each other, I'm still curious on why you are here. Yugito walked forward to answer him. How about we talk this over this guy's home, since I can tell that you are exhausted, plus being out here in the open can lead to another surprise attack. Are you alright with that? Don't worry, we'll show no hostility towards you or anyone here. Yugito looked at Kakashi, which he agreed. Once things were settled, everyone decided to go to Tazuna's house since Yugito's theory was very plausible. Tazuna's house. Currently, everyone from what happened earlier from Zabuza's attack was sitting in the dining area of Tazuna's house. With them was also Tazuna's daughter, Tsunami. When Tsunami saw her father coming home, she was delighted to see that he was safe. She was surprised to see that her father not only brought home Konoha Shinobi but also Kumo Shinobi. After explaining to her daughter what happened, they all went to the dining area to discuss on why Kumo Shinobi were here. Kakashi was sitting at the table, continuing to rest from using his Sharingan for a bit, while Yugito sat on the opposite of the table. Everyone had taken a place around the dining area, which Sasuke leaned next to the wall behind Kakashi, eyeing all of the Kumo Shinobi. Ko took to a corner of the dining area, watching everyone as well, but also making sure to note anything special that happens since he was certain that Danzo would wanted to know about this. Sakura sat next to her sensei to make sure that he was alright. Like Sasuke, Naruto leaned on the wall behind Yugito, while keeping an eye on everyone. Samui did the same as Ko, just at the opposite corner from him so she can see what he was up to as well. Omoi sat at the other end of the table just watching both Yugito and Kakashi. Tazuna sat at the opposite of Omoi, while his daughter stood near the entrance to the hallway. After a moment or two, Kakashi decided to end this quiet moment. Alright, now that everyone's here, we can begin on why Kumo-nin are here. Not that I'm ungrateful or anything, especially setting me free from that water prison, but I'm curious on knowing why you're here. Question Kakashi. Yugito took a moment before she spoke. We're here to complete a mission that we were given. Answered Yugito. And what mission would that be? Asked Kakashi. I can't say, but it does probably involve with your mission. Said Yugito. Oh, and what does your mission involved with our mission? Kakashi question. You see, from the information we were given, we heard that Gedu would be here to kill some bridge builder. Said Yugito as she explained on what happened when they got here in Nami no Kuni. Once Team 9 made it to the mainland, C and Karui went back to Kumo with the chest. As they went back, Naruto, Samui, Omoi, and Yugito quickly went to Nami no Kuni to find the bridge builder. They then looked all over for someone to take them to the island. After finding someone, they then headed for the island. When they got there, they quickly went to find the closest village to see where any bridge builder were living nearby, but were stopped when they found Kakashi fighting Zabuza. They then noticed his genin team, while also seeing an old man. That was when they guessed that this old man was the bridge builder, where it led them to the present here and now. So you came here looking for me. Why is that? Tazuna spoke up. To get a big fish, we needed a taste morsel. Stated Naruto. Everyone looked at the masked Kumo-nin, wondering on what he meant, but Kakashi and Sasuke knew it. Kakashi then said, bait, you needed live bait and Tazuna is just the bait you need. The bait that will lure Gedu out from his hole and into the open, right? Yugito nodded and explained that they want to use Tazuna to lure Gedu out into the open, or at least find someone that will lead them to Gedu, where they plan to integrate him on giving them the information they need as well as capture him for doing illegal activity in their home country that they were able to find out in the hideout they found. So, Tazuna interrupted, in others' words, you're here to go rid of Gedu, which Yugito explained that in a way, they are. Tsunami argued at Yugito about how they're using her father as bait in order to get Gedu. Kakashi also kinda had to agree with Tsunami since their mission was to protect Tazuna. Tsunami was about to tell them to leave, when Naruto spoke up. If you let us stay here, we can provide an early warning system since even though you aren't part of our mission, We still need you alive to get him out into the open. Plus we'll be helping your people by getting rid of your obstacle, Geto, out of your country and in our prison or something. When Tazuna heard this, he thought quietly for a moment. Tsunami was against it since it would be putting her father in even more danger, but Kakashi did give his 2 cents into the thought since he had to agree that Tazuna's life was already in danger, but having Kumo as an early warning for them was actually a good idea, especially since they're here and doing it for free, besides that they will stick around anyway in the shadows waiting for the opportunity that they want to find Geto. After thinking it over, Tazuna gave them an answer. Alright, since you people are going after Geto, you can stay here, however you must make sure that my daughter as well as my grandson is safe while you are here. That's my only request. That agreeable? We'll begin checking it out area around the house then around the island to see if we can find anyone that knows Geto or for any hideout he might have here. Stated Yugito. After they settle the matter, the tensions around them fade, but Kakashi was thinking using this moment to settle something that was racking his nervous, like he missed something. Ko noticed this, which he asked. Oh, it's nothing, Ko. I just got this feeling that something's wrong. Stated Kakashi. About what? Asked Sakura. It's about Zabuza. I feel like there was something wrong about it. Answered Kakashi. Like what? You saw the hunter nin take down Zabuza. You even checked to see if he was dead. Said Sakura. That's right, but I can't shake the feeling about it. Replied Kakashi. Sasuke then spoke that he was more interested with that hunter nin, since he felt that the nin was just as young as him, maybe a little older. Kakashi explained that this was the shinobi world where there could be shinobi as young as them, but as powerful as himself. He then went to explain on what are hunter nin are since that is what he is as well as their field of expertise. Man, who would have ever thought that someone that young used Senbon needles to kill a guy like Zabuza? He must be really strong. Stated Sakura. Yeah, replied Kakashi with concern. It was then, he finally understood why he was having this feeling since talking about the hunter nin gave him the answer to his suspicious feeling. Yugito, who was watching Kakashi acting strangely, also got the picture since the conversation they were having also got her interest. It wasn't until Kakashi acted suspiciously that Yugito was also able to figure out. Before anything could be said, Naruto stated. I also must admit that the hunter nin must also be pretty good, especially his acting as he carried Zabuza away. This confirmed Kakashi's own theory, along with Yugito, since if a genin was able to figure it out, and then it must be true. Sakura was confused on what Naruto said. Excuse, but what do you mean, his acting? Kakashi decided to answer Sakura's question. It's simple, Sakura. Zabuza isn't dead, he's very much alive. This got everyone's attention since Kakashi just made a startling announcement, which Yugito only nodded to confirm Kakashi's statement. Sakura wanted to know on what he meant. Well, Sakura, remember what I said about the hunter nin? What did he do to Zabuza's body? Asked Kakashi. Sakura answered, how could we know? That mask guy took the body away. Yeah, if he needed proof of his work, he could have just taken the head. As well, remember the weapons he used, what were they? Questioned Kakashi. Sasuke stated that it was Senbon needles, which he quickly realized. Samui and Omoi, who were listening to the conversation, also came up with the same conclusion that everyone was talking about. Sakura panicked about Kakashi's statement, while Ko remained neutral about it, while Sasuke narrowed his eyes. Yugito only sighed, while Naruto kept himself calm, while Samui had her cold attitude. Omoi was his usual self as he started to mutter about the worst-case scenario. Outside, the masked hunter nin had brought Zabuza to a hidden clearing, where the mist was clearing up, in order to remove the Senbon needles that were lodged on his neck. Before he could get to it with one of his medical tools, Zabuza woke up and stopped him. That's all right, I'll do it myself, yelled Zabuza as he removed the bandage wraps around his mouth. The masked nin replied, welcome back from the dead, Zabuza-sama. Zabuza sit up and pulled the needles out of his neck, Damn, you're as brutal as ever. Oh, you shouldn't be so rough to yourself. If you continue to pull the needles out like that, you'll really die. Stated the masked nin. Zabuza looked annoyed at his accomplice. How long are you going to weak that stupid mask? The masked nin nodded at Zabuza's request to reveal that the boy was instead a very pretty girl. It was then that Zabuza complained on how his companion put him in a death state in a very dangerous method. After some explanation on why she hit Zabuza in such a deadly spot, as well as some resting advice from him, Zabuza couldn't help but compliment his partner for staying so calm and pure, especially since she was a kid. Taking on Kakashi was simple, but seeing Kumo nin coming to their aid was a surprise to me. Stated Zabuza. You're right, will you be alright next time? Asked the girl. Next time, I will not only defeat Kakashi, but if those Kumo nin interfere again, I take them out as well. Stated Zabuza. Tizuna's house. As Kakashi explained to everyone about Zabuza still being alive, Tizuna didn't look as convinced as Kakashi. Aren't you thinking too much? Hunter nins are supposed to kill missing nins. Tizuna stated. Kakashi plainly said, no, with all this suspicion we'll have to be prepared. That's a shinobi rule. He then brought his head down and thought out loudly, plus, whether Zabuza is dead or alive, there's no guarantee that Geto hasn't hired any more stronger shinobi. Yugito looked at Kakashi. This is a tough one for you, Kakashi-san. If you don't count on us, then it would be virtually a one-on-one battle. The only things me and my team can offer is just securing Tizuna's family and give you an early warning. If Zabuza was standing against us on getting to Geto, then we could be of some support, but if not, then you are on your own. She stated, which Kakashi nodded. It was then that Sakura spoke up on what she heard Kakashi said. Kakashi-sensei, when you say prepared. What did you mean by that? Do you have a strategy on how to beat Zabuza? Sort of, Kakashi replied as he looked at his team. You guys will receive training. Kakashi said. Sakura was wondering on what Kakashi meant, which he explained that because of this encounter, he noticed that his team wasn't up to snuff yet, especially since if it wasn't for the Kumo team, they'd probably be killed. Kakashi thought with the proper training, they will have a better chance of defeating Zabuza and his possible partner. Sakura wasn't so confident since she thought that Zabuza might sneak attack them again, but Kakashi put that thought away since he explained that putting a person in a death-like state would take a toll on the body, which would take several days to recover from it. Sasuke smiled at the thought of training to get stronger, which Kakashi noticed. After everything was said and done, Kakashi went back to Yugito. Well, now that we have the matter with Zabuza dealt with as well as everything that's happened, we can have a proper introduction with each other. I'm Hatake Kakashi, Junin from Konoha. These are my students, Uchiha Sasuke, Harun Sakura and Ko. Kakashi pointed at each one. Yugito did the same. My name is Ni Yugito, Junin of Kumo. This is my temporary team, Team 9, Omoi, Samui and N, Naruto's codename, which each one nodded to Kakashi and his group to indicate on who they were. It was then that Kakashi actually took a good look at N, more precisely his cerulean blue eyes. He saw that N's eyes weren't piercing, but he can still see so much in them. He can see that N had passion, strength, determination, power, focus, patience, desire and many other types of emotions. But he also saw pain of some kind. Kakashi wasn't the only one to see N. Sasuke also looked at N and couldn't help but keep his eyes on him. Like Kakashi, Sasuke saw N and couldn't help but want to fight him since he can tell that N was strong. Naruto noticed the looks that Kakashi and Sasuke were giving him. Naruto thought that Kakashi was seeing him because of what he did earlier with his bow, while Sasuke looked at him like he was eager to fight with him. He voiced out his opinion. What is Uchiha-san? Why are you looking at me like that? Questioned Naruto. I'm curious about you, since even though you're using a bow, you're strong. Fight me, asked Sasuke. Everyone looked at Sasuke with their own opinion. Kakashi just sighed since Sasuke was like that, and knew that he was driven to get more powerful to kill his brother. Naruto looked at Sasuke plainly before he said, "No." Sasuke wasn't pleased about it. "Why not? You scared or something?" "Well, it wouldn't be the first since I am an Uchiha, but don't worry. I won't cause you too much damage after all. I'm Konoha's top genin and this year's Rookie of the Year," Sasuke stated. "I'm also Kumo's Rookie of the Year, and the reason I don't want to fight you is because I don't fight unnecessary battles on missions since it could cause a problem later. Plus, I only fight when there's a reason worth fighting for, not for my own personal sense of superiority like you Uchiha-san," stated Naruto. Sasuke narrowed his eyes on what Naruto said to him since he practically told Sasuke that he was nothing more than a spoiled brat. Sakura looked angry at En for what he told Sasuke. Before things would go out of hand, Kakashi decided to end this and said to his team to prepare for tomorrow morning, which they acknowledge. Yugita ordered her team on start checking the perimeter to see if there were any signs of spies or something like that since she wanted to get the jump on their target before he can. Morning. It was mid-morning, as around this time many animals and any other creatures in Nami no Kuni were moving around now. It was also at this time that Kakashi took his team to the forest to do some training. Kakashi took them to a nice spot, where they were surrounded by tall trees. He then got his team attention by telling them that they are going to be climbing trees. "Climb a tree," Sasuke and Sakura plainly said, while Ko remained emotionless about it. "That's right," answered Kakashi. "What sort of training is that?" asked Sakura. "Let me finish first, Sakura. This is a little different than normal tree climbing. You see, you're going to climb without using your hands," stated Kakashi. Sakura and Sasuke looked unconvinced about it, but Kakashi gave them a demonstration. He channels his chakra to his feet and started to walk up a tree like he does walking on the ground. Sasuke and Sakura were impressed about it, which Kakashi started to explain on the purpose of this exercise. Once he finished his explaining the purpose, he told his students to start the exercise as well as use their kunai to mark how far they climb and to surpass that limit. After explaining, Team 7 went to work, where Sasuke and Ko only made about 1/4 of the way up. Sakura, on the other hand, was able to make to the top of the tree and sitting on a branch. Just before Sasuke and Ko were about to begin again, they heard Kakashi, "I hope you're only watching them since you're just curious, not to just get info from us." They all looked at Kakashi's direction, which was above Sakura. It was then they heard someone plainly walking down from on top of Sakura. They all saw that it was En, Naruto's codename, coming down the tree very calmly. En looked back at Kakashi. "Sort of, to tell you the truth, I only came this way to see if there was any tracks leading away from Tezuna's house and found you guys instead. I then saw your genin were trying to do the tree climbing exercise, which I got the first look on what the great Uchiha clan can do. I think the girl is much more of a prodigy than the so-called Rookie of the Year can do," En stated. Sakura looked angry at En, while Sasuke only glared at him, while Kakashi and Ko just observed him. Before Sakura can yell at him, En said, "Well, I let you and your team continue with your training since I got work to do. I'll probably see you at dinner later on," said En before leaping away with great speed. As Naruto was leaving, Sasuke only glared at him since he just practically ridiculed his family name, while also looking at him since he saw that Naruto was able to do the tree climbing with ease, which only made him more frustrated since Naruto was also Kumo's Rookie of the Year, like him. After Naruto encounter, Sasuke looked at the tree and went to work on getting stronger, while Kakashi looked at En and wondered on who he was. Zabuza's hideout. Zabuza was lying in bed, resting from the death-like state he was put on. Next to him was his subordinate. As she stayed by her master's side, they had an unwelcome guest coming in. It was Gato with 2 of his own henchmen. "So you have come back in defeat. It looks like Kiri has some pretty pathetic ninjas." Gato evilly grinned at Zabuza, who lied still on his bed. Getu continued to goad Zabuza, who remained silent until he went up to get him to speak. He was stopped by Zabuza's young subordinate who said, "Don't touch Zabuza-sama with your dirty hands." With a death glare. It was then that Getu's two samurai henchmen went to protect their boss, but was stopped when Haku used their own swords to subdue him. The young shinobi gave them all a warning, which they took and left them alone. Before they left, Getu said, "One more time. If you fail again, you won't be welcome back here anymore, remember that." Once they left, the young shinobi went back to Zabuza's side, where he said, "Haku, you didn't have to that," where underneath the blanket, Zabuza held a kunai, ready to kill. "I know, but it's too early to kill Getu. If we cause a commotion here, they will be after us again. We have to remain patient," said Haku, which Zabuza nodded in agreement with Haku's reasoning. Evening. It was sunset as everyone was returning to Tezuna's house. Kakashi saw Yugito and her team coming back from another day of searching but found nothing yet. Kakashi was continuing to observe Sasuke and Ko with their tree climbing exercise, while he sent Sakura to keep an eye on Tezuna for the rest of the day. It wasn't until the dinner time that they returned. Now, everyone was eating dinner where Tsunami prepared with some help from Samui. Once it was done, everyone began to enjoy the meal. As everyone ate peacefully, Sakura asked about a certain picture that had a rip on it. It was then that the family went gloomy, where Tsunami's son, Inari, left. The group was introduced to Inari yesterday after they had their little meeting. Inari bragged on how they were all going to die from Getu. They didn't care since Inari was still just a child, but Naruto was the one who cared the most on what Inari said since he said that there wasn't any type of heroes in the world. After Inari left, Tezuna began to explain about what has happened to the country's hero, who is also his son-in-law, as well as Inari's stepfather. Once they heard on what Getu did to Inari's father and to the rest of the village with all his men and such, it was understandable on how the people lost their hope. Next day. It was middle of the day as Naruto was at a training spot that was on the opposite side of where Kakashi's team was training in their tree climbing. Naruto was currently practicing his wind manipulation training by cutting a leaf in half, which he was almost successfully completed with only a centimeter or two to go. Naruto continued this training until he felt a presence coming near him. He looked to see that there was a girl wearing a traveling kimono, holding a woven basket with plants in it. He decided to see who she was and to know why she was here. The girl in presence sensed someone coming towards her, whom she turned to see that it's a boy. But the thing that caught her attention was he was wearing a Kumo headband on his forehead. She kept her cool and decided to play by ear, which she heard Naruto say, "Hello, I hope you don't mind me asking, but, what are you doing around here since this place is a solitary place away from anyone?" The girl smiled, "Oh, I was just picking some herbs to help a friend of mine." Naruto didn't sense anything wrong with her since she gave off a calm, gentle feeling. He then asked her if she wanted some help with it, which she agreed. They both went to pick some flowers, where Naruto had asked the girl for some help since he wasn't used to picking herbs. It was during this time that he learned that the girl's name is Haku. Once the herbs were picked, both of them started to have a conversation. The girl asked, before we bumped into each other, I saw that you were training. Are you a ninja?" "Yeah, I was just training on learning on how to use my wind manipulation before I decided to help you out," smiled Naruto. It was then Haku asked, "Why are you training?" "It because I want to become stronger," replied Naruto. "Why are you trying to become stronger? You look already strong enough," said Haku. "I know that I already look strong, but I want to get stronger," Naruto said. "Why do you wish to keep on getting stronger?" asked Haku. Naruto replied, "It because I want to become the strongest person in my village and earn the respect of the villagers as well, but more importantly, I want to be strong enough to protect the people that not only became my friends, but also saving my life by those who thought of me as nothing more than a worthless being of existence when I was young." explained Naruto. As that's so, then you must have a lot of precious people in your life to make you want to get stronger, which is where your true strength would come out, since I believe that only a person that has someone precise to protect is when you truly be strong. Replied Haku. Naruto thought about what Haku said, which he imagined Killer Bee, A. Darui, C. Yugito, Omoi, Karui, his senseis and teachers as he grew up, and finally Samui. For Haku, all the times as young child were nothing but pain and loneliness until meeting Zabuza. Yes, I understand that very well. Naruto smiled, which Haku also smiled. They both exchange a farewell to each other. But before Naruto can continue to train, Haku stopped and without turning her back, she said, "Oh, just in case you don't know, I'm a boy." Naruto looked dumbfounded as he thought, I can't believe I was attracted to a boy, even though he looked and sounded like a girl. He's one of those pretty boys that I heard the girls talk about when I used to be in the academy. Just as Naruto was about to continue his training, he sensed someone else was coming near him. He looked to see that it was Omoi. Nah, Omoi started to say, but was stopped by Naruto. Omoi, remember not to call me by my real name for now. Stated Naruto. Oh right, sorry, anyways you're up for guard duty. Omoi said. Since yesterday, Yugito suggested a new approach. Since they have searched the whole island, they figured that Zabuza or any of Geidu's hideouts might be on one of the surrounding islands, which was further away. So Yugito planned to split the team up into two pairs. The first pair would be Yugito and Samui, who was now currently searching one of the islands away from the main one they were in, while Naruto and Omoi were split into another pair, where they would keep an eye on Tezuna's family, which they would take turns of keeping watch and the other train. The next day, they would switch so the same thing can be done, except it would be Yugito and Samui to do guard duty while Naruto and Omoi would search the next island on the list. A couple of days later, it was evening as everyone returned back to Tezuna's house. During the past couple of days, everyone was busy with their own thing. Yugito and Samui had returned from scouting another island to see nothing. The Kumo team has eliminated all but one island left, which they guess was the one where Zabuza or Geidu's hideout was hidden. They planned on going at him tomorrow morning, which Naruto volunteered to stay with the family just in case, which they nodded. At the same time, Kakashi has been supervising his genin team training, which he got Sasuke, Sakura and Ko to practice until they were perfect, while during the time, he would keep an eye on Tezuna as they trained. It wasn't until today that Sasuke and Ko had completed the tree climbing exercise. Naruto at that time has completed his leaf cutting exercise, which he was ready to master the next level in order to start using his wind manipulation ninjutsu. Everyone sat around the table, waiting to have some dinner. As they waited, Inari looked at Naruto and everyone else. As Inari continued to look at them, he started to get angry because they act like they can win against Geidu, which it made him remember of his father, who died at Geidu's hands as he tried to defeat him. Naruto noticed Inari starting to break out tears, which he asked, "What? Why do you guys bother on trying so hard? No matter how hard you train, you're still no match for Geidu's men. No matter what claims you make or how hard you work, when facing the strong, the weak will only end up getting killed." Inari yelled. Everyone was quiet after what Inari said, but Naruto broke the silence. "Whatever kid, I'm not like you. I'd hate to be like you. You don't know anything about this country, yet you're being so noisy," said Inari, which he continued to explain the things on how hard his life was, while comparing himself to Naruto as he acted strong and smiles with his friends. It was then that Naruto had snapped. "I'm sorry, but I didn't understand anything that you just said," which Naruto looked at Inari, who looked like he was about to yell at him again, but stopped when Naruto said, "Because I don't understand little sissies like you, who only know how to run and hide, and who disgraces his father's legacy." Naruto narrowed his eyes as he said it to Inari's face, who was shocked to hear someone say he failed his father. It was then at this moment Naruto decided to leave since he wasn't hungry anymore. Inari only cried as Naruto left, since Naruto's words really hit him hard.